The highway stretched endlessly under the cold, gray sky. A black SUV screeched to a halt near a deserted stretch, its tires kicking up gravel. A man stepped out, his face hidden under a hood, clutching a tiny, trembling golden retriever puppy. Without hesitation, he tossed the puppy into the thorny bushes lining the road. The puppy yelped in pain, but the man didn't even glance back as he sped away, leaving the helpless creature to die. The puppy, barely 8 weeks old, whimpered as the wind howled around it. Its fur was matted with mud, and its ribs pressed against its skin from hunger. It tried to crawl toward the road, but its weak legs gave out. Cars zoomed past, their drivers oblivious to the small life fading just feet away. The puppy's breaths came in shallow gasps as the cold seeped into its bones. It had no way of knowing that its fate was about to change in the most unexpected way. Miles away, Jake Reynolds, a former firefighter-turned-truck driver, pulled his rig into a rest stop. His face was weathered from years of saving lives and the grief of losing his own family in a tragic accident. He stepped out, stretching his stiff muscles, when a faint sound caught his attention. It wasn't the wind. It was a whimper, weak but desperate. His instincts kicked in, and he followed the sound toward the highway's edge. His heart clenched when he spotted the puppy, half buried in the dirt, its golden fur dulled by filth. Jake dropped to his knees, gently lifting the shivering creature. The puppy's eyes, wide with fear, locked onto his. In that moment, Jake felt something he hadn't in years. Purpose. "Hold on, little one," he whispered, wrapping the puppy in his jacket. "I've got you." Jake sprinted back to his truck, cradling the puppy like fragile treasure. He turned the heater on full blast, rubbing warmth back into the pup's tiny body. But the puppy wasn't just cold. It was starving, dehydrated, and on the verge of collapse. Jake rummaged through his supplies, finding an old water bottle and a rag. He dipped the cloth in water, letting the puppy lick at it weakly. Every second counted. Jake knew he needed proper supplies, food, medicine, a vet, but the nearest town was an hour away, and the puppy's breaths were growing slower. Jake made a decision. He'd drive through the night if he had to. As he pulled onto the highway, the puppy curled against his chest, its heartbeat faint but steady. Jake's jaw tightened. "You're not dying on my watch." The dim glow of the truck's dashboard lights was the only comfort in the dark. Jake had stopped at a 24-hour gas station, buying canned dog food and a cheap blanket. The puppy, now named Lucky in Jake's mind, lapped at the food weakly. Its tail gave the faintest wag, and Jake felt a surge of hope. But the night was far from over. Lucky's breathing was still labored, and Jake knew he couldn't wait until morning. He pulled out his phone, searching for emergency vets. The closest one was still 40 minutes away. Jake didn't hesitate. He revved the engine, glancing at Lucky, who was now sleeping fitfully. "Stay with me, buddy," he murmured, pushing the speed limit. The highway stretched ahead, dark and endless. But Jake refused to let this story end in tragedy. The vet's office was a small, run-down clinic on the edge of town. The moment Jake burst in with Lucky, the tired-looking vet sprang into action. She hooked the puppy up to IV fluids, checking its vitals with practiced hands. Jake paced the waiting room, his hands clenched into fists. When the vet finally emerged, her expression was grim. "He's stable for now, but he's severely malnourished and has a lung infection," she said. "If you hadn't found him when you did—" She didn't finish the sentence. Jake's throat tightened. "What do we do?" he asked. The vet sighed. "He needs round-the-clock care. Are you prepared for that?" Jake didn't hesitate. "Whatever it takes." Lucky's nose twitched as the aroma of warm chicken filled Jake's small apartment. Jake had spent his last $20 on premium puppy food and boiled chicken, determined to give Lucky the best chance at recovery. The vet's warning about refeeding syndrome played in his mind. Too much too fast could kill the fragile pup. Lucky wobbled on unsteady legs toward the food bowl, his tail giving the faintest wag. Jake's hands trembled as he measured out the exact portion the vet recommended. When Lucky finally took his first proper bite, then another, Jake felt tears sting his eyes. It was the first time since his family's death that he'd cared about someone else's survival more than his own. The puppy looked up with sauce-covered whiskers, and in that moment, a bond was sealed that no cruelty could break. The digital clock read 3:17 a.m. when Jake jolted awake to the sound of terrified yelps. Lucky was having a nightmare, his tiny legs paddling frantically against the blanket as if running from invisible demons. Jake scooped him up, feeling the puppy's racing heartbeat against his palm. "Shh, you're safe now," he murmured, rocking gently. But as Lucky calmed, Jake realized his own hands were shaking. The puppy's trauma mirrored his own. The night terrors, the sudden panic, the way both of them flinched at loud noises. He carried Lucky to the window where moonlight streamed in. "Looks like we're both broken, little guy," Jake whispered. The puppy licked his stubbled chin as if to say, "But we're broken together." Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall, covering the world in a clean white slate. The pet store's bell jingled as Jake entered. Lucky tucked securely in his jacket. Rows of colorful collars lined the wall. Red, blue, studded, personalized. Jake's fingers hovered over a simple black leather one, then jerked back when he saw the price tag. His trucking job barely covered rent since he'd taken time off for Lucky's recovery. The shopkeeper, an elderly woman with kind eyes, noticed his hesitation. "That one's too big for him anyway," she said, pulling out a softer blue collar from the discount bin. "This was meant for Christmas pups, but—" Her voice trailed off as she saw Lucky's scars. She rang it up for $2. As Jake fastened the collar, Lucky puffed up proudly, as if knowing this marked him as someone's family now. The bell jingled again on their way out, but this time it sounded like a new beginning. Lucky's paws touched grass for the first time since his rescue, and he froze, overwhelmed by the sensations. The park was nearly empty in the winter chill, perfect for their first outdoor adventure. Jake kept the leash slack, letting Lucky explore at his own pace. When a leaf skittered by, the puppy jumped back, then curiously batted at it with his paw. Then disaster struck. A loud motorcycle backfired nearby. Lucky yelped and bolted, the leash slipping from Jake's grip. "Lucky, stop!" Jake sprinted after him, heart pounding. The puppy was heading straight for the busy street. Just feet from the road, Lucky suddenly turned and raced back into Jake's arms, trembling violently. Jake clutched him close, whispering promises against his fur. That's when he noticed. Lucky hadn't run toward danger, but back to safety. Back to him. Dr. Alvarez's eyebrows shot up during Lucky's 2-week checkup. "You've done an incredible job," she said, listening to Lucky's strong heartbeat. The lung infection was gone, his weight nearly normal. But when she scanned for a microchip, her expression changed. "This puppy has one," she said quietly. Jake's blood ran cold. Someone had cared enough to chip Lucky, then abandoned him? The vet traced the chip to a breeder 200 miles away. As she called, Jake braced for the worst. Would they take Lucky back? The breeder's response shocked them both. "That litter was sold to a fight ring. We reported it when we found out." Jake's grip tightened on Lucky. The pieces fell into place. The scars. The fear. Someone hadn't just abandoned Lucky. They'd tried to destroy him. The crash came at 2 a.m. Jake woke to the sound of shattering glass and Lucky's ferocious growls, a sound he'd never heard before. A shadow moved in his kitchen. Jake grabbed his baseball bat and flicked on the lights, revealing a gaunt teenager frozen mid-step, a smashed window behind him. Before Jake could react, Lucky launched himself between them, teeth bared but not attacking. The boy dropped Jake's toaster, hands shaking. I just wanted food. Lucky's growls softened to whines. Jake saw the boy's hollow cheeks, the way his eyes darted to the fridge. Later, over sandwiches at the table, the runaway teen petted a now friendly Lucky while Jake called social services. As the cops led the boy away, he whispered, "Your dog." He knew I wasn't bad, just hungry. Jake looked at Lucky with new wonder. This dog didn't just need saving. He saved others too. The dog trainer sighed as Lucky cowered from the treat in her hand. "Most abused dogs never fully recover," she said bluntly. Jake's jaw clenched. He'd spent his last savings on these sessions, determined to help Lucky overcome his fears. But the more the trainer pushed, the more Lucky shut down. That night, Jake tried a different approach. Instead of commands, he simply sat on the floor with a handful of kibble. For an hour, he did nothing but wait. Slowly, tentatively, Lucky began approaching on his own terms. When the pup finally took food directly from Jake's palm without flinching, something miraculous happened. Lucky rolled onto his back, exposing his belly for the first time. Jake's vision blurred as he gently rubbed the once trusting spot. The trainer was wrong. This wasn't about recovery. It was about rewriting their story together. One small act of courage at a time. The radio crackled with urgent weather alerts. A historic blizzard was closing in fast. Jake glanced at Lucky, now curled contentedly by the heater, oblivious to the danger. The roads would be impassable soon, and his truck wasn't equipped for extreme snow. He needed supplies, but the nearest store was 20 minutes away. As Jake pulled on his boots, Lucky suddenly perked up, whining and pawing at the door. "Not now, boy," Jake muttered. But Lucky persisted, his barks sharp with urgency. Then Jake noticed it. The smell of smoke. A flicker of orange glowed through the kitchen window. The heater was malfunctioning, sparks dancing dangerously close to the curtains. Lucky had sensed it before Jake did. The race against time had begun. Escape the fire, survive the storm. Jake grabbed Lucky and bolted outside just as flames licked up the walls. The freezing wind hit them like a slap, the blizzard already swallowing the neighborhood. With no time to call for help, Jake bundled Lucky into his truck, the engine sputtering in the cold. The roads were a whiteout, visibility near zero. Lucky climbed onto Jake's lap, his warm body a stark contrast to the icy panic setting in. Jake's breath came in ragged gasps. No shelter, no heat, no way back. Then Lucky did something extraordinary. He nosed Jake's glove off and pressed his paw into Jake's palm, as if saying, "Think. We're not done yet." Jake's military training kicked in. He remembered an old ranger station 5 miles east. A slim chance, but their only one. The truck crawled through the storm, tires slipping on black ice. Lucky stood alert in the passenger seat, ears twitching at every creak of the straining vehicle. Then, crack! The truck lurched into a snowdrift, the axle snapping. Jake cursed, slamming the wheel. They were stranded. Lucky barked sharply and scratched at the door. When Jake opened it, the dog leaped into the snow, vanishing into the white haze. Lucky! No exclamation mark, Jake's heart stopped. Had the dog run off to die? But moments later, Lucky reappeared, barking insistently. Jake squinted. Just visible through the snow was a faint trail, a snowmobile path, leading straight toward the ranger station. Lucky had remembered the scent from their drive weeks ago. Jake's eyes burned. This dog wasn't just smart. He was a miracle. The ranger station was dark but unlocked, thank God. Jake barricaded the door against the wind, his fingers numb. Lucky shook off the snow and immediately began sniffing the perimeter, as if securing their refuge. Jake found emergency blankets and a wood stove. Within minutes, a fire crackled to life. As warmth returned to his limbs, Jake noticed Lucky pawing at a cabinet. Inside were cans of food, expired but edible. Jake laughed hoarsely. "You're better at this than I am." He shared a can of beans with Lucky, their breath mingling in the cold air. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, something shifted between them. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was partnership. Jake woke to a sound that froze his blood, a wolf's howl way too close. Lucky was already on his feet, growling low. Through the frosted window, yellow eyes gleamed in the dark. A pack, desperate and hungry, circled the station. The door wouldn't hold if they charged. Jake grabbed a fire poker, hands shaking. But Lucky didn't cower. He stood his ground, hackles raised, and unleashed a deep, guttural snarl Jake had never heard before. The wolves paused. Lucky's next move stunned Jake. He threw back his head and howled, a perfect mimicry of the pack's call. The alpha wolf tilted its head, confused. After a tense silence, the pack melted back into the storm. Jake stared at Lucky. "What are you?" Dawn revealed a world transformed. Snowdrifts like frozen waves, trees bent under crystalline weight. The storm had passed. Jake's legs were stiff as he stepped outside, Lucky bounding ahead joyfully. Their footprints from last night were gone, erased by the blizzard. It felt like a second chance. Then Lucky dug frantically at a snow mound. Jake helped, uncovering a buried snowmobile, the Rangers, with keys still in the ignition. Jake whooped, lifting Lucky into the air. "We're getting out of here!" As they sped toward town, Lucky's ears flapped in the wind, his tongue lolling in a doggy grin. Jake realized he was grinning too. For the first time in years, he felt alive. Back in town, their story spread like wildfire. The local news interviewed Jake outside his burned apartment, Lucky panting proudly beside him. "This dog saved my life," Jake said simply. A viral hashtag began, #, Lucky the Miracle Dog, #. But attention brought unexpected consequences. A sleek woman in a designer coat approached Jake at the diner. "I'm from Canine Heroes magazine," she said, sliding him a business card. "We'd pay $5,000 for exclusive rights to Lucky's story." Jake's gut twisted. Lucky wasn't a commodity. He shook his head. The woman's smile turned icy. "Think it over. That dog could be worth a lot to the right people." That night, Jake's phone buzzed with an unknown number. A man's voice, smooth and threatening. "We know that dog's pedigree. He's from a championship bloodline. We'll give you $10,000 cash. No questions." Jake's blood ran cold. This wasn't about a magazine. They wanted Lucky for fighting. Lucky sensed the tension pressing against Jake's leg. Jake hung up, hands shaking. He'd served in Afghanistan. He knew how to handle threats. But now he had something, someone, to lose. He packed a go bag, loaded Lucky into the truck, and headed for the mountains. If they wanted a fight, they'd get one. An abandoned hunting cabin, hidden in the pines, became their refuge. No electricity, no plumbing, just safety. Jake taught Lucky to stay silent on command, to alert to strangers' footsteps. The dog learned faster than any soldier Jake had trained. One freezing night, as they huddled by the fire, Lucky suddenly stiffened. His ears swiveled toward the door to me. A twig snapped outside. Jake extinguished the fire and grabbed his hunting knife. The doorknob rattled. Then, a familiar voice. "Jake? It's Dr. Alvarez." The vet stepped inside, her face grim. I tracked you down because you need to know those men? They're part of a ring that's been stealing dogs for years. The police are closing in. But you and Lucky, you're bait. Jake's military mind raced. They couldn't run forever. Then we set our own trap, he said. The plan was risky. Use Lucky as visible bait while Jake and the cops waited in ambush.